Well, if you're wondering what's driving all this COVID and all these lockdowns and everything like that, the latest conspiracy theory, it's not really conspiracy theory, it's actually China. China is driving everything, and it's got its hands into Canada, it's got its hands into the United States, and you can bet your bottom dollar it's running our government in Britain here. This is a short clip from President, Secretary Pompeo, or whatever his name is, Pompeo, in the States. He's an ex-military guy who was, I think, a tank commander. And he is explaining how China is controlling an awful lot on our campuses and things like that.
Another example at Princeton, just this year, students in a Chinese politics class were forced to use code names on their work, lest the CCP discover their identities and prosecute them for free expression of views on Hong Kong and the CCP under its draconian new national security law. That's right here. This happened right here in the United States of America. American students talk about safe spaces as shelter from ideas they dislike. Chinese students need safe spaces to learn of the ideas that they love. What a stark contrast. Students from China at American universities also live in fear that their families back home will be arrested, will be interrogated, tortured, or worse because of the things they say in an American classroom. But look, the CCP doesn't just target Chinese nationals. They want to influence American students as well. Professors and administrators too. Look, they know that left-leaning college campuses are rife with anti-Americanism and present easy targets for their anti-American messaging. That's why they planted Confucius Institutes on our campuses. And under President Trump, our State Department has made very clear these Confucius Institutes are literally up to no good. Many have gone away. Many campuses have seen that, and they've chosen to close down these institutes. But right here in Georgia, Wesleyan College still has one in Macon. Look, it's why there are groups on campuses called Chinese Student Scholars Association here too. They're directed and almost always funded by the Chinese embassy or a local Chinese consulate. Its purpose, to keep tabs on students and to press pro-Beijing causes. Now you would think at freedom-loving places like Georgia Tech and institutions and scholars all across the world, administrators, school faculty would be more up in arms about the Chinese Communist Party's outright theft and flagrant violation of freedoms that I've described. But we see it too seldom. Well, why? Why do schools censor themselves? They often do it out of fear of offending China. Indeed, I must tell you that MIT wasn't interested in having me to their campus to give this exact set of remarks. President Raphael Reif implied that my arguments might insult their ethnic Chinese students and professors. But of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Those are the very people that this set of remarks is intended to protect their freedoms. And I must say that yielding to the objection of hurt feelings plays right into the Chinese Communist Party's hands. They watch America closely. It's what the party says constantly in response to legitimate criticism around the world. You can see it. And how would the party know how the Chinese people feel anyway, as no one ever gets to vote? Look, we can't let the CCP weaponize political correctness against American liberties. We have to protect and preserve them. Fraudulent cries of racism or xenophobia should never drown out a candid exposure of the activities of the Chinese Communist Party. But we see too often on American campuses that there's silence and censorship. It's been driven by the Chinese Communist Party. It usually boils down to something far less idealistic. So many of our colleges are bought by Beijing. Let me tell you about Vera Zhou. She's a permanent resident of the United States of America. She's originally from China and is a senior at the University of Washington. In October of 2017, so just on 3 years ago, she returned to China to visit her father. Local authorities put her in a re-education camp. A re-education camp for 5 months. and under house arrest for 18 months after using a virtual private network connection to connect to her school's website, something many of you are doing even as I speak. Back here, we saw this. Our State Department team, Vera's mother, Bob Fu, a great friend of the Chinese people, desperately petitioned the University of Washington to advocate for her return. But the University of Washington, a woman named Sarah Castro, the head of the Federal Relations Office, said that the university wouldn't help because of a multi-million-dollar deal with China. Now, thank God, Vera was eventually released and returned to the United States, but no thanks to the University of Washington, and no thanks to the deal that it had made with the Chinese Communist Party. The U.S. Department of Education, over the last years, has found that schools have taken an estimated $1.3 billion from China.
I'm gonna give you a link to the full video beneath, but basically, our universities and our education facilities have sold out to the Chinese Communist Party. But by the Chinese Communist Party, it's probably one of the richest political parties in the world. So they can afford to bundle money around and bung money into these socialists. More air things. Socialist lecturers and activists and all these left-wing wankers, who think that they're going to be elevated when the communists eventually take over. They think they're going to be elevated to some kind of position of power, when basically all those people that have taken bribes and all those people that have worked for the CCP whilst under thing will be seen as feeble traitors, and the CCP will put you against the wall and shoot you first. But yeah, I mean, they're going to come for the likes of the free thinkers as well and everything like that. But we are in the middle of a takeover from the Chinese Communist Party, and if you think anything else, no. So all these other little issues that are niggling, we've got to stop fighting. We've got to stop arguing amongst each other. We've got to stop thinking this is bigger than left or right. This is bigger than, everything. And we've got to get control of our own government back. We've got to wrestle power back into our own government, because our government isn't our government anymore.